And as always, your views and comments are welcome on this program. Look for us on our social media handles at Joy News on TV. We'll be glad to share your thoughts with the rest of the world on Facebook and on Twitter. On Instagram, we're also found there at Joy News on TV. Do well to share your thoughts with us. Now, after successfully undertaking balloting yesterday, and we saw what happened when all the candidates got their places on the ballot paper, today the Electoral Commission chairperson, Madam Charlotte Osei, believes that the commission is ready, READY, to deliver the most credible elections in the history of the country. The EC chairperson has today been engaging the Editors Forum Ghana, where she has been outlining plans of the commission to make this year's polls a credible one.
It's a very good opportunity for us to engage and to explain what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, but also more importantly to get feedback from big brothers and sisters in the media and guidance on how we can do it even better. Because we're all working for the same purpose, to ensure that our country has peaceful, credible, transparent elections. And that is the priority of the Electoral Commission, that this year's elections will be even more transparent and even more credible and more accepted than the 2012 elections. And we keep working to make sure that every election sees improvements beyond the last election. As you're all aware, we're 26 days away from probably the most important events in our nation's calendar this year, the presidential and parliamentary elections. This is a time when we as a people get to decide who leads the country and who represents us in Parliament. It's a very critical decision, and to do that as the institution that is mandated to organize the elections, it is impossible for us to do our work effectively without the media, which stands between us, the ones conducting the elections, the people seeking to be elected, and the people who take the decision as to who gets elected, which is the elected.
Right then, so a lot more issues were discussed at this forum. Joseph Akablay covered that forum for us. He joins me in the studio. Good afternoon, Joseph.
Good afternoon.
You're not an editor yet, but you were there at the forum today. Walk us through some of the other issues he speaks of. She says we're ready, but did she tell us what measures in fact have been put in place to assure every single Ghanaian that indeed we are ready?
Quite a number of them, Francis. And first and foremost, she mentioned that following the 2012 election petition, some 29 recommendations were made to the commission. She said they've been able to implement as many as 28 of them. So she talked about some of the changes they've brought on board, talking about having 2 BVD devices, biometric verification devices, at each polling station. Then again, still having backup devices at the district office of the Electoral Commission to ensure that in the event the ones we have at the polling station, there's any challenge with it, we can quickly take them to that end and ensure that the process continues smoothly. She also talked about the fact that sometimes the machine fails to verify someone who has come over to vote. So this time around, they also made provision for manual verification as well. Then she talked about the system of sending the votes all the way in terms of the numbers to the Electoral Commission's office. She says apart from the manual one that will be scanned and sent across, they will also be undertaking electronic one, which later on they'll be demonstrating to the parties as to how they will be undertaking that exercise. But they will still be relying on the manual one as the main document.
A question came up today, and as we learned, about some having concerns that the electoral system as we have it now is prone to rigging. What did she have to say about that?
She disagrees, and she says, in fact, that is impossible because the process is such that it's decentralized. The votes come all the way from the constituency level. It goes to the constituency coalition center. Then from there, it goes to the office of the Electoral Commission. And she says, at each step, the parties have access to the documents, so they know what is coming over to the EC main office. In fact, he says this time around, they'll be allowing the cameras into the Electoral Commission's, what was formerly the strong room. This time around, the EC headquarters coalition room, and we'll be seeing what is going on there. So it's virtually impossible for the commission to rig the polls.
Let's hear from her.
We were in a commission meeting just before we went. We were trying to finalize the evaluation of the nomination forms and announce the final list, when we got a message that someone was saying on a radio station that the EC is planning to use the proxy process to rig the elections and that this year 270,000 people are going to be taking part in this process, and it has been designed as a main vehicle for rigging the elections. We were pretty stunned, and so I said, okay, let's find out. So we called our IT staff and said, how many voters are on the list of proxy voters for this year? Just confirm it. Do we have 270,000 people on the list? They were like, no. How many people are taking part in proxy voting this year? And the answer was 534. We've also been told that we are going to use the special voting process as the vehicle to rig the elections. In 2012, we had about 120,000 people who took part in special voting. This year, the numbers are about half of that, excluding the electoral staff, and we've added the media this year. So media and security personnel come to about 29,773. How we are going to use this to rig the elections still defies our imagination. The processes for early voting or special voting, as we call it, are very clear. They follow the same processes that we use for the general elections, because in our view, they are part of the general elections. The only thing is, because you have people who are going to be working at very different locations from where they normally work. You have media who need to cover the elections. You have security personnel, and of course, the staff that we deploy during the elections. It's not always possible to get electoral officials who are working at their own polling stations. And so we need to make provision for them to be able to vote. So special voting is the same as the general election process. It's the same process of making sure that the ballot box is empty before the start of election. Political party and candidate agents have the right to put their seals on the ballot boxes so that the ballot boxes cannot be opened unless they are present. After voting, the boxes are handed over to the security agencies. That has always been the practice, and secured until election day. When they are brought out, the seals are removed by the EC and the parties, and then voting, counting can be done. The only difference this year is the security agencies said they needed more time than the 3 days to do special voting so that they could deploy themselves to the 29,000 polling stations. And so we agreed we'll do it on the 1st of December, while the general elections will happen on the 7th of December. The party agents who are the special voting centers, and there's only one per constituency, so there's 275 polling stations for the special voting. Party agents are still there. Party agents will have the list of the people who are voting there, the registers. They will have the list. They can monitor those, how many actually showed up to vote, so that on election day, on the election day when the results are being counted, you can compare the numbers who were on the register, the numbers who voted against your own records, against the results that are going to be opened and counted on election day.
That settles it on the matter of whether or not the electoral system can be rigged on election day. Well, there are a lot of issues that were discussed. In fact, Joseph, let's return to one controversial matter that came up sometime, I think last week, when Madam Charlotte Osei spoke to the BBC, Akwesi Sapong. There was a matter of, in the event that the election results are too close to call, there will be that option of stopping the election and having a recount done. What is she talking about now?
From her response, it appears she finds it a bit surprising that people have a problem with that, and she says that is in line with international best practice. She says it's much better that when at any stage in the process you have reason to doubt the results that is being churned out, or you feel that it is too close. She says it's much better to take a second look and be sure rather than announce and go back and check again.
We can hear from her now.
I think that people got the issue of the recount wrong. First of all, when you are managing elections, even international best practices require that when the results are too close to call, you take your time and make sure it is right. And we've seen situations like in Gabon recently, where conflict broke out because one party wanted a recount. The Electoral Commission refused to do the recount, and it became a conflict situation. All we were saying was that it is better to be safe than sorry. The returning officer has a duty, and yes, a party can request it, and if the party requests it, at the polling station you can request for a recount. If you want another recount, then it has to move to the constituency collation center. But also at the discretion of the returning officer, if they think that it is too close, maybe one vote difference, 2 votes difference, may be safer for you to finish and then do it all over again just to check. That's all we're saying. And we do not know why there is such an issue about it. Should we go ahead and declare the first set of results we get? Even if it's, let's say, a 1,000 margin, we shouldn't check it. All we're saying is that part of international best practices, when it is that close, it is usually safer and more prudent for the Electoral Commission to just check it again and make sure everything is right.
Right, so we will get some reactions to this because we know some of the parties have some concerns about the comment that she made about results being recounted if, in her view, the results are too close to call. We'll bring you those reactions in just a moment. But just before I let Joseph go, the last issue that we have to talk about is her thinking, or the Commission's thinking, as to why the High Court decision was challenged at the Supreme Court. What exactly did she say in that regard?
Well, she says, contrary to some perception that it was just an attempt to prevent Dr. Edum from participating in the polls, she says it was a strategic move, one meant to ensure that the Commission stayed within the schedule.
It's a very good opportunity for us to engage and to explain what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, but also more importantly to get feedback from our big brothers and sisters in the media and guidance on how we can do it even better. Because we're all working for the same purpose, to ensure that our country has peaceful, credible, transparent elections. And that is the priority of the Electoral Commission, that this year's elections will be even more transparent and even more credible and more accepted than the 2012 elections. And we keep working to make sure that every election sees improvements beyond the last election. As you're all aware, we're 26 days away from probably the most important event in our nation's calendar this year, the presidential and parliamentary elections. This is a time when we as a people get to decide who leads the country and who represents us in Parliament. It's a very critical decision, and to do that as the institution that is mandated to organize the elections, it is impossible for us to do our work effectively without the media, which stands between us, the ones conducting the elections, the people seeking to be elected, and the people who take the decision as to who gets elected, which is the elected.
Right, so let's get some reactions to today's issues that the EC chair raised at the Editors Forum. The policy advisor for the Progressive People's Party, Kofi Asamoah, is joining us on the line. He has some peculiar concerns on the issue of the EC's decision to stop the elections and recount if, in their view, the elections are too close to call. We can speak to him now. Mr. Asamoah, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, Chief, good afternoon.
What exactly is your concern? Because I know that the convention has been, even at the collation center, if there are concerns about polls being contested, a recount is open. Why can't the commission say that we can stop the elections and recall it if it's too close to call?
Well, Francis, I think that all of us need to be careful. It appears, by and large, that, the Constitution says that the Electoral Commission shall have powers to do certain things. And those things that include the conduct of public elections, they can only take steps by regulation. My understanding of that is that anything they want to do, even when it comes to the issuance of notice of poll, everything must be contained in a document called Regulation CI-94. If we don't have that, which she wants to do now in that regulation, obviously she can't do that. And we should not allow her tell the members of the commission to do things as and when they please.
Mr. Samasian, are you saying that you've checked the CR94 and there is no provision like this where the EC chair can say that if it's too close to call, we can stop and do a recount? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there is no provision. And if there was a provision, she would have referred to it. There is none. What is there is that when you are dissatisfied with the counting at the polling station, the candidate or its agent can ask for a recount. Even the recount is 1 or 2. Now, the presiding officer is given a discretion to allow the second one or decide that the second one should be done with the permission of the returning officer at the collation center. So if you look at the rules, the request for recount must come from the candidate or their agent, and it must be done at the polling station. So what is this business of when the results are closed? If it is closed, announce it. So if it is closed, you don't go and ask for a recount yourself. Now, it is not backed by law, and I think at this stage we need to be more careful, monitor the activities of the commission. Otherwise, things that are not backed by law will be introduced into the electing processes. Now, this is what is likely to happen. The reason why we say it is dangerous is that if candidate A is leading and candidate B is behind, and because of that, you say it is too close to call, you go and do a recount. What happens if candidate B is in front and candidate A is close behind, and you don't do the recount? What do you think is likely to happen? And in the first scenario that I spoke about, if I am leading and you say you want to go and do a recount because it is close, do you think I'll sit and wait for you? And if Francis is leading, and because Francis is leading, it is close, and you don't conduct the recount, what do you think people's interpretation will be? In any case, what is the commission's definition of too close? You see, that is why everything must be documented in the regulation CI-94, so that the term closeness, it is not an arbitrary term, that it is known. If I were the chairperson of the commission, I can say 1 million difference is close. Francis Aban can say that 200,000 is close.
Well, I will say that, just for clarity.
Sorry?
You just used my name. I'm saying I wouldn't say that, but just make your point.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that then it is unknown as to what Kofi will say as opposed to what Francis will say. That is why we need to define what is closeness. And that definition will come when we have it in the CI. Even today, as we speak, assuming that we can even allow that the commission should do a recount when it's closed. What is the definition of closeness? Has anybody been told what that means? So if there is a gap of 3 million and the chairperson says that it is closed, who can challenge her? So these are the dangerous elements that are being introduced, and I'm not surprised. There will be more.
Okay, but sorry, Mr. Samasian. Listening to her, this is what she says. She says that this call will be made because it follows international best practices. We may not have heard the examples, but wouldn't you think that a whole commission, in its judgment, in its knowledge of what happens in other parts of the world, this can be a good way to avoid any potential confusion on election day?
First of all, it's not true that recount when elections are closed is international best practice. It has to be requested for, it has to be regulated. So the best practice, if they exist, should be part of your regulation. It shouldn't just come out of your head or any time that you wish that it should happen. That is what I'm saying, that if it is so known as being international best practice, what is the definition of closeness of results? Do you know the definition as we speak? Nobody knows. So if Dr. Endom gets 5 million and other people get 3 million and 3 million, would somebody accept that to be close? Or when there's a gap of 50,000? Or when there's a gap of 3 votes? What is closeness? So anything that is not in the regulation should not be entertained. And she can't do that because, and by and large, we've been introducing things in the equation that is not right and that is not backed by law. And I think that we need to challenge that. In the law, a recount can only be ordered by a court of law. In any case, the rule says that the seal, when the ballots are done, and different parties and candidates get what is allotted to them. They are sealed separately and put in a tamper-proof envelopes. These are all in the regulation, so that you can't go and use a normal quarter-size paper envelope to do it. These are things stated in the law. So when these things are packaged, put in the ballot boxes, sealed, and the seal numbers recorded and kept at the commission's office, at what point will the commissioner order that everything should be reopened in the presence of who, and what is the arrangement for that recounting to take place?
Now, bearing all of this in mind, sorry, Mr. Sian, I think you made a point. So with these concerns you have, are you going to, for instance, raise them at the IPAC meeting, considering that time is indeed of the essence?
Well, we'll raise it at IPAC meeting, but for IPAC meeting, I can tell you that we can't get anything concrete from that discussion from IPAC meeting. What we need to do is to seek some constitutional clarity on these matters, because if it is not contained in the regulation, it is not allowed, it is illegal, and it cannot be entertained. And the commission should not be encouraged to do some of these things.
So the PPP will head to court on this for interpretation?
Yeah, but of course we need to do that, because what is the meaning of recount? What is the meaning of closeness? We need more information on that.
Okay.
And this is the second time we've heard this, and we don't have the definition. All we hear is international best practice. Which international?
Kofi Asamasia, thank you for speaking to us, a policy advisor for the Progressive People's Party. We're also joined on the line now by the national chairman of the Convention People's Party, Dr. Edmond Dele. Thank you for joining us, sir. Dr. Dele, can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Great. So we heard from the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. The point she makes is that on election day, if the results are too close to call, she can ask for the counting to be stopped and a recount done. Is the PPP comfortable with this, considering what we're hearing from your colleagues from the PPP?
I believe that if we have agencies already checking and the signing is done correctly, I think it will not be necessary to make a recount. Once our representatives are there and they are there to observe, and you have the requisite signatures confirming that that is correct, I don't think there will be need to make a recount. I don't think so. It will be necessary to do so.
You think
once we are there to witness it and sign, I don't think there should be need to have a recount. Even if the difference is one vote, you don't need to have a recount.
But per what she says that is an option that will be considered if it is deemed necessary.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Dele, can you hear me? I'm saying that what we're hearing from the EC chair is that it is an option, a credible option that they will consider on that day if they feel that the elections are too close to call.
The line is not very clear because I'm in a running vehicle.
Okay, so
I'm campaigning in the north. So
that's fine. Professor Dele, if you can hear me, I'm just raising my voice a bit more. The point I'm making is that from what the EC chair tells us, if it becomes very necessary, they will go ahead to stop the counting, do the recount to be sure that what they will announce finally will be the exact reflection of what the votes say. You're saying that won't be necessary? Is that what you're saying?
I think if this is to be agreed, this should be agreed upon at the IPAC meeting. We must all meet, and then if we agree on it, then she can take that decision. But I don't think that it will be a good idea to leave that in the hands of the chairperson or the commission alone. I believe strongly that once we have people there to observe, we have our agents there, and as we are now giving all everything to look at ourselves, and we have our people there will be no need, even if it's one vote or two votes, the person has won, and we should accept it without any doubt.
What is your worry if that discretion is in the hands of the EC chair?
No, I don't think it's a question of worry. Because if we have followed, she herself is saying that she's doing it in such a way that they will be so transparent that when it comes to the moment that you announce it, I don't think we will have a problem with it. And once the processes are agreed upon by all of us, when it comes to the moment, even if there's a difference of one vote or between the two, I don't think. And I think recount should only come on if we disagree or the one who has won is not being accepted by the one who has lost. But if the one who has lost says that, okay, I accept it, then it's okay. And I believe strongly that that should be left to the courts of law to go and decide if there is any. But if I stand and there is even one vote and I, as a competitor, I say I accept, there will be no need recounting them. It is when there is a disagreement that, and this one, I think the court should come in and not the EC alone.
Okay, and Doc, Professor, just before I let you go, you mentioned that you're doing campaign in the northern region. Yes, we know the balloting has been done. You're now #1 for the presidential elections. How are you using that for your campaign? What is the kind of slogans you are crafting now with this?
It is just God's wish. CPP was the first party to bring independence to Ghana. CPP was the first party to get a leader of which. CPP was the first party to have a prime minister. CPP was the first party to have a president. And CPP was first in everything. We brought about all these constitutional rules. We brought about party, all these things there. So it is good that the first party, most powerful party in Ghana and in Africa at whole, is now trying to reclaim its place. As I said the other day, this sleeping giant is now awake. And I think even the heavens, the spirits are with us. So it's a signal that something different is going to happen this time.
Okay.
And that the American election has already proved to us that elections can have its surprises. And I can assure Ghanaians that CPP will surprise Ghanaians and surprise the world. That come 7th December, I won't be surprised that you find out that DC will be the president of the Republic of Ghana.
Okay. So for the slogans you're using, what is it? Is it CPP 1, CPP first? What is it?
CPP first, of course. And of course, you know, we had this slogan that total support for green seat. So we are still using total support for green seat. But now we say CPP 1, the cockerel is going to grow again. CPP first. We are first, and we want to remain first, or we shall be first, or nothing else. That's what we are aiming at. We are either first or with the first. If we are not first, we'll deal with the first.
Okay, Professor Edmondele, thank you for your time. National Chairman of the Convention People's Party, his take on the announcement by the EC Chair and also how things are playing out on the campaign. CPP 1, Cockrell. Okay, that'll be interesting. We'll see how that plays out and manifests into votes in this year's elections. But thank you, Joseph, for the breakdown of what happened today at that editors forum that the EC Chair was present at. Still staying with politics, he is finally on the 6th position on the ballot paper for the upcoming election. He's one of the presidential candidates who has shown unwavering faith in his quest to become the president of this country. On the sidelines of a press conference organized by the party here in Accra, Joy News' Master Lagwagwa speaks in an exclusive interview with the presidential candidates of the People's National Convention, Dr. Edward Mahama. In that interview, Dr. Mahama talks about what the party's decision will be in case of a runoff and whether the party will make any attempts to get its former presidential candidate, Hassan Ayariga of the APC, now back into the party.
After a congress in the Upper West region, Hassan Ayariga, who was a member of the PNC, a former flag bearer of the party, broke away from the party because of some disagreements, formed his own party, the APC. Now the APC is no longer in the race, and we all know that politics is about numbers. So now that he's no longer in the race, will the PNC extend an olive branch to Hassan Ayariga to bring him on board to make sure that the PNC cruises to victory?
We did that after Congress. We asked him to come on board. We are not just targeting Hassan Ayariga and the APC membership. We are targeting members in NDC, MPP, all the parties, because to be frank, you cannot win with just one party. And there are Ghanaians in all these parties that we are looking to convince that they've tried the rest. They now have to try the best, which is PNC and Edward Mahama. Yeah.
So would you be extending an olive branch to Hassan Ayariga?
Olive branch is to all Ghanaians who are listening to me and who have a vote.
Not specifically Hassan Ayariga?
No, my target is all Ghanaians, because Hassan Ayariga doesn't have enough members to make me president of Ghana. You need at least 4 million plus votes. So I'm looking to all Ghanaians. My constituency is Ghana. So my message is all Ghanaians.
You talked about numbers. On the issue of numbers, in the 1996 election, you polled 3% of the total votes cast. Now, away from that election, in the subsequent elections, we saw a steady decline in the number of votes that you garnered at that election. This is your fifth attempt at the presidency. What makes you think that you can increase or possibly do better than you've done in the past, because you've not garnered even more than 5% of the total votes cast in all the elections that you've contested in?
You are from Joy, right?
Yes.
1996 when I ran, Joy was only one or so of radio stations, private news radio stations, or two. Actually, Joy was there, Gold was there. But today, do you know the number of radio stations there are in Ghana? So my message now has the ability to reach many more Ghanaians. And that is why I'm confident. Let me just tell you a simple thing about myself. I brought a car from Chicago, a Volvo car, 1989 model. I'm still driving it. 1989 to 2016 is 27 years. 27 years. Edward Mahama has taken care of a car, just an ordinary car. 27 years is still on the road. The nation is more valuable than a car. The nation is you. And I want to take care of you like I've done my car. You are in good hands. All Ghanaians will be in good hands in Edward Mahama's hands. They'll be in good hands because I'm a doctor. Ghana is sick. And when you are sick, you don't go to a lawyer or a communicator. You go to a doctor. Ghana is suffering from what I call economic diabetes, which is poverty in the midst of abundant human and natural resources. Yes.
Interesting perspective you have on media pluralism.
Yes.
Finally, in case this election goes into a runoff, I just want to have an idea where the CPP would go to. I mean, we'll be having some affiliations and some parties aligning with others. Some say that the PNC is more tilted towards, the NDC. You have a better relationship with the NDC than the other political parties, because even one of your members, in the spirit of all-inclusive governance, he's at the presidency. Alassane Azone is at the presidency. So we see the PNC tilting more towards the NDC. In case of a runoff, is the PNC going to support the NDC or the MPP? Or maybe the PPP, perhaps?
You talked about Alassane Azone.
Yeah.
In 2000, the PNC supported the MPP. 2008, we have our minister, our member with the NDC. We have given to both sides. It's now time for them to give to us. So we will be in the runoff, if there is a runoff, and we'll be asking one of them to support us.
And still staying with political parties, they are all giving several biblical interpretations about their position on the ballot paper. Well, the PNC has also joined the fray, saying the number 6 is divine, and also is the day Ghana gained independence.
Indeed, it is not by accident that the PNC's presidential candidate is sit on the ballot paper. It is a testimony that even God has endorsed the PNC as a route to economic independence. We attained political independence on the 6th day of March 1957. Sadly, however, we have continued to live in economic subjugation for nearly 6 decades after independence. The deafening shout of Ghanaians everywhere is economic independence. Indeed, the shout is economic independence now. And so in God's divine calculations, the party with the capacity to deliver this much-needed economic independence that will assure every Ghanaian of work and happiness is the PNC. Hence, his direction to us to pick the number 6, a number that corresponds with the day we won political independence nearly 6 decades ago. And may I also add, ladies and gentlemen, that God concluded creation on the 6th day. And the last things God created were man and woman. And he said to them, "Go and be superior over all other creations." It is a testimony that by our choice of number 6, God is telling us that we shall prevail over all other contestants in this year's election. And when you read Numbers 6 to 24, you will realize that God is asking that he shall shine prosperity upon the good people of this republic through no other than a presidential candidate. So indeed, the choice of number 6 is divine. And you would also realize that number 6 is a special day in the calculations of God. So for us, even though we might have been disadvantaged in our campaigns, God directed our hand to pick number 6 because of the assignment he has that awaits us.
I'll look up that verse and bring you what it says. The number 6, verse 24 for the PNC. We'll come back to this issue of biblical placements and the ballot paper in just a moment. But on the issue of some embezzlement by an executive member of the PNC, the General Secretary of the party, Atiku Mohammed, says the party has constituted a committee to investigate the matter.
The other issue is that to the extent that that issue you are talking about was reported, tells you disposition towards issues such as that. It means we do not tolerate, neither do we cover up issues like that. So to the extent that we reported it, it tells you we want to do something about it, and indeed we are doing something about it. The party has constituted a committee to work on this, and I'm sure eventually that wrong will be righted, and whatever information there is thereafter, I'm sure the media will get to know. But certainly, this is a party that was built on honest leadership. Service with honesty is the motto we work with. And it is not just for fun. It is coming from a history. We have been in government, or at least the antecedents of this party. We've been in power before from 1979 to 1981. And not even the kangaroo courts of the PNDC could find a single minister or a deputy minister of that administration guilty of corruption. So we have a track record, and it is in keeping with that record that caused us to report this when it was discovered to the police. And so we are not condoning corruption, we are fighting it. And the leader of this party, who happens to be the flag bearer, has demonstrated severally.
Well, the party also says it is ready to launch its manifesto early next week. Mr. Atiku Mohammed gives the scoop on what will be contained in the PNC manifesto.
It's about giving Ghanaians a new deal. It's about offering Ghanaians a new beginning. And it's about giving the young people of our country the opportunity to realize that the future of this country is on their shoulders. That is what this manifesto is seeking to do. We want our institutions to be responsive to the needs of Ghanaians. And that is why there must be a new beginning. We've done the same things over and over again in the hope that the outcomes will be different. But unfortunately, the outcomes have been the same. Poverty, hardship, hopelessness, and so on. So the PNC is coming to give Ghanaians an opportunity of a new beginning, whereby our institutions will work, whereby we can create jobs for our teeming youth, who, because of unemployment, are becoming a timed bomb. We also want to offer Ghanaians a new deal that will see a boost in agriculture, a new deal that will see the growth of industrialization. As we speak now, everybody knows the sad state of our industrialization. You take our real economy and you go to the industry subsector, and you can't help but to feel very sad, because every subsector of industry is growing, and in some cases, not only are they growing at lower rates, but they are growing at negative rates. Generally, industry is growing in the last fiscal year at around 2.2%. For a country that wants to industrialize and become a competitor in the global economy, growing, if your industry is growing at 2.2%, is unacceptable. And it's also because of the oil. But for the oil, industry would have been growing at even far lesser rates. You take manufacturing, and that is even where industrialization is supposed to be based. And the growth rate is lamentable. And so our manifesto is coming to give Ghanaians options that we can industrialize. And the model in doing so is very simple. Cottage industrialization, modeled along what we call growth poles. You don't just say one district, one factory, or one village, one tractor, like the NDC and NPP are saying. We are saying that your targeting of industrialization must be targeted. So that if you want to have industries, cottage industries, they must be sited at places where they have comparative and competitive advantages over. You go to Palugu, they are very good in the production of tomato. You site a tomato factory in Palugu, and this is elementary economics.
Talk of economics. So the PNC now stands for economic independence. They have a new deal in their manifesto they will launch sometime later before the elections. And they are number 6 on the ballot paper. You heard him mention number 624. I'm just trying to look it up and see what is there so we can all know for their benefits the significance of number 6 for the PNC. It says number 624, according to Mr. Atik Mohammed, what we see here in the Bible is that the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. That's even extending to 25. So that means that for the PNC, the Lord, through Dr. Edward Mahama, will bless us and keep us. Let's see if that would be what will work for the PNC with the biblical connotation heading into this year's election. And speaking of positions on the ballot paper, here is a special report on what each party thinks their number represents and how it can work in their favor for their electoral fortunes. Every number must count, especially for political advantage. Ivor Kobna Green Street, first on the ballot, is fancying a trick for the CPP.
It is a good position on the ballot. It is better than being, 4th or 5th or 6th. I think everybody knows that Electoral or Recounting are good positions on the ballot. So we are grateful for being in that position. CPP will mark at position 1, and the Ghanaians will decide.
For Nana Konadu Agyemang Rawlings, number 2 signifies victory at the first attempt for the National Democratic Party.
The significance of a number really depends on what you want to do with it. But for me, I think 2 always represents victory. And because I'm looking at victory, that is the ultimate. Really, yeah.
Some of your supporters have been saying you're using too sure, too direct.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the regions have started using that already. But it's not something that we have sat down and planned that we're going to say too sure, too direct. We're just going to say victory for the NDP.
President John Mahama, according to the NDC, is divine and his victory is written in the stars. Campaign coordinator Kofi Adams explains why.
For our part to have come out boldly with a music titled John 3:16 long before even we submitted our form, and to do a first ballot of parliamentary to pick that position 3, and to do a second ballot for presidential and still pick the position of 3 should tell you that God has decided up there and man will let it happen on earth. So if whosoever believed in John Dramani Mahama that God himself gave us in 2012, if we are able to continue to believe in it, there is no way this country will go back. The country will continue to march forward.
For the Progressive People's Party's Dr. Ndom, he is being marketed as the center of the elections. Kofi Asamoah fills us in.
Dr. Ndom is from the central region. We are at the center. Ghana is almost at the center of the earth. Our symbol, the sun, is the center of the universe, and it signifies stability and the pivot around which everything revolves. That is what we want to project to the people of Ghana, and they should give us the money, and they will see that the support that the PPP will give to Ghana's development will transform all of us for the better.
The MPP also draws biblical inferences from their number 5, but media advisor Uboshisai Kofi says the elephant must tag along.
But for us, from a marketing strategic point of view, we need to get our voters to identify the position on the ballot. 5 is good luck. We've talked about it being representative of the letters in the Quran, the Bible, truth, Akufo. So we are trying to market more the elephant, the symbol of the party, the number 5, which is high 5, Kami 5, give me 5, Mummy 5. Elephant plus Mummy 5. most significantly because we recognize the individuality of the parliamentary ballot, in which not every parliamentarian is at number 5.
For the PNC, the number 6 for Dr. Edward Mahama and his corresponding marketing message is yet to come out. But Jacob Osei-Yeboah reminds us of former President Kufuor's Asieho, plus what 7 means for his luck.
This is the 7th election in the 4th Republic. The number 7 also stands for perfection. And Joy, the only independent presidential candidate, is on number 7. So Joy stands for perfection. Just as when you mention Joy, then you're talking about the multimedia group. We have Joy Diabetes, Joy something, Joy, everything is about Joy. It's all about Asieho.
So that's it for that special report. Let's see how the parties use the numbers to market their candidates well enough to win them some votes in this year's elections.